The Habs win an overtime thriller at home against one of the top offensive teams in the league in the Pittsburgh Penguins. It came behind some clutch goals from Caufield and Dach, plus some greatness from Guhle at the blue line. I'll be breaking everything down, so you won't want to miss this game recap version of Habs Digest. Hello, bonjour, and welcome everyone to this game reaction edition of Habs Digest for October 17th, and wow, what a game, guys. This was, in the first period and even into the second, I was getting a little worried for our boys, but they pulled it out in the end, and we have to start with Dach's goal in overtime, right? We have to start with that. I mean, that power play in overtime just looked so dominant. I know it's 4-on-3, but you couldn't have drawn up a better play for Sean Monahan feeding it to Dach right in front. I mean, I was absolutely astounded by just how composed Montreal was in that overtime. It was really, really back and forth for the first couple minutes of overtime. Sure, Pittsburgh had some chances. Montreal had some breaks. Monahan had a break there, couldn't quite bury one. But it really came down to the end when Jeff Petrie, the former Hab, who got booed when he touched the puck every single time tonight, took his third penalty of the game. All three Pittsburgh penalties went against Jeff Petrie. You gotta wonder if the crowd got to him. Of course, we did cheer him when we showed his video on the Jumbotron, but in classic Montreal fashion, you boo him when he's on the ice against his former team, right? So maybe the crowd got to him. He got called for a slash just about 1:40 into overtime, and it set up Montreal's overtime power play. Now, clearly, Marty St. Louis has had these guys working on it because, my goodness, it was surgical. Everything they did, except for that offside call just before the goal, it was done with so much precision. I was so happy with what I saw in overtime. And Sean Monahan, shout out to him. He had a fantastic game. His first game on the first line with Nick Suzuki and Caufield. But his biggest moment came in overtime. He was carrying the puck with so much poise, waited until the Pittsburgh D fell asleep. Dach snuck back door, and I believe it was Dumoulin in front of the net. I could be wrong on that, but he lost track of Dach. Dach snuck in behind Monahan with the pinpoint pass for the overtime winner. Absolutely glorious. But we wouldn't have even been in that position if it wasn't for Caufield's goal near the end of regulation. With just over 2 minutes left, Marty St. Louis decides, I'm going to pull the goalie. We have an offensive zone face-off. I'm going to pull the goalie. And I loved the personnel that he put out there. Not only was Caufield out there, but he put out maybe our best passer, our best playmaker in Jonathan Drouin. Now, he has had such a tough time. Of course, he was healthy scratched for the first 2 games of the season. He's been through so much, physical and mental pain, but he looked like he really wanted to be there against Washington, as me and Jesse broke down in our last game recap. And tonight, he showed up again. He wasn't super visible for a lot of regulation until the end of the third period, but in those clutch moments, he really did show up. I thought he put in a ton of effort tonight, but we have to talk about that cross ice pass, really. Drouin had it on the boards, and he fired it through about 5 or 6 sticks right onto the tape of Caufield, who absolutely sniped it behind Casey DeSmith to pot the tying goal with just over 2 minutes left. The Bell Center went electric, and you just knew that after that goal, Montreal was going to carry that momentum into maybe the end of regulation, maybe overtime. Turned out to be overtime, and they just absolutely rolled the rest of the way. Pittsburgh hardly had any more chances. Even those last 2 minutes of regulation after Caufield scored were electric in the Bell Center. I mean, you could just hear the crowd roaring for every little touch. The Habs were playing with so much energy. We had a couple maybe close chances down the stretch there. And boy, I mean, just the whole, last 10 minutes of game time was so exciting. I know we're working backwards here from the exciting Dach goal to the exciting Caufield goal, but one player I wanted to focus on for this whole game, and in my opinion, the MVP of tonight's game. Sure, Caufield had a clutch goal. Sure, Dach scored the winner in overtime, but if I didn't talk about Guhle, it would be a shame. Guhle was, in my opinion, Montreal's best player tonight, and I don't think it was even close. Not only was he on the penalty kill, as usual, he had about 17-18 minutes of even strength time, plus we saw him on the power play, an extended time on the power play for the first time this season. He had about 2 minutes of power play time. And, Marty switched it up from that 5-forward second power play unit because they weren't really getting a ton of opportunities in the first couple games. But he decided we're going to put Guhle out there, and boy, did he impress. I mean, on the power play, he was just playing well, solid. I mean, he didn't score a point on the power play, though we'll get into his first and second NHL points later. But he was just so impressive from the start of the game right to the end. Hardly any mistakes. I mean, even in the first period. A play that many of you might not have even noticed. Sidney Crosby is skating up the right side of the ice trying to break into the zone. And it's Sidney Crosby. A lot of defenders will give him a lot of respect. Kind of, they don't want to get beaten. But Guhle steps up, swipes his stick, pokes the puck away from Sidney Crosby and spurred a chance the other way. I mean, he is just not scared of anything. As I've said probably 20 times by now, he looks so mature on the ice. He looks like our best defenseman. Right now, he is our best defenseman. David Savard has, maybe a little bit of a chance to be called our best defenseman, but I don't think so. I think it's Caden Guhle, and I honestly think maybe even Jordan Harris has been better than Savard for a good chunk of this year so far. But man, Guhle is so impressive. He was the MVP tonight, and he was locked down defensively, especially on the penalty kill, but then even on offense tonight, he was making sick passes. That first goal of the game, we were down 2-0. Those two Malkin goals, I mean, credit to Evgeny Malkin. That man was in the right spot at the right time for both of them. I mean, I think both were preventable. We'll get into those a bit later. But, we're down 2-0. Montreal really needs to get something going, right? And Caden Guhle had already been on the ice for a minute or two here because it was just following a power play. It ended the second period. Petrie got his second penalty of the game at, I believe, 19 minutes of the second period. So we got 1 minute of power play time in the third. We didn't score on that power play time, but just as it expired, Guhle had been out there for that full first minute before Suzuki's goal. He was out there for that full minute of the power play. Puck came back into Montreal's end as the power play expired. And Guhle decides, I'm going to take it myself. He goes up to center, and he just puts it on his backhand. And a full cross-ice pass from the right side, right at the center line, all the way across to Suzuki, who's just about to cross the blue line. Pinpoint. Suzuki got it. Well, it wasn't pinpoint, I suppose, but it was right onto Suzuki's tape. He had to reach a little bit, but he got the puck. And, I mean, that pass is so underratedly difficult. While you're moving on your backhand as a defenseman at full speed, trying to sauce it across the ice, right to Suzuki. Of course, he shoots it off the post, off to Smith, kind of squeaks through. DeSmith doesn't know that he doesn't have the puck. Suzuki skates right around the net and just pots it backhand. The Pittsburgh defense couldn't really do anything because DeSmith thought he had the puck. And that was the goal that got the Bell Center back into it, got the announcers back into it, got everyone back into the game. And it was all started by the excellent play and excellent pass from Caden Guhle. And of course, he got a secondary assist on the Caufield goal to end regulation. This is the Suzuki face-off win went straight back to him. He passed it to Drouin right along the boards, who sauced it right across the Caufield. And man, I know you guys who have watched every video know that I am really biased towards Caden Guhle. He is just phenomenal in my mind, but I can't stop talking about him. I was gonna say I'm sorry, but I'm not sorry. I don't care. I'm gonna talk about Caden Guhle till the day I die because this man is making his case to just be my favorite Hab. I almost want to go buy his jersey right now. This man didn't carry us tonight, but man, like without him, there's no way Montreal comes out with the win tonight. He was absolutely phenomenal. And, speaking of players that were really phenomenal tonight, I did want to give a shout out, even though he didn't get a ton of ice time tonight, only about 10 minutes, but Juraj Slafkovsky. Personally, I thought this was his best game as a Montreal Canadien. I know that was in the title for our last game recap, but I think it's true again tonight. I think Slafkovsky is getting a lot more used to the NHL ice, and even though he was on the fourth line tonight with Jake Evans and Mike Hoffman, which some people thought it's kind of a strange line combination. Slafkovsky will have to play a little more physical defensive role with Mike Hoffman on the other wing, and, he didn't really thrive in a defensive role in any of his, professional games before. He's a lot better when he gets the freedom to create by himself because he's quite a good playmaker and he has a decent shot. But that fourth line, I thought it was really interesting. Right off the bat in the first period, they had, I think, 2, maybe even 3, maybe even more offensive zone starts. We'd have a face-off right to the right or left of Casey DeSmith, who, by the way, did have a great game, made some amazing game-saving stops against Montreal. So credit to Casey DeSmith. Of course, the backup to Tristan Jarry, playing in his first game this year, he did well. But he lost. So, Juraj Slafkovsky, I got to get back to him because those offensive zone starts from Jake Evans, Mike Hoffman, and Juraj Slafkovsky almost always turned into a long period of possession. These guys were just fighting for the puck constantly. Slafkovsky felt like he had another burst in his step tonight. Every time he was going towards these loose puck battles in the corner or behind the net, he was laying his body, really pinning people up against the boards. He was creating chances for himself. Later in the game, he almost had The tying goal before Caufield scored, Casey DeSmith was bobbling the puck. Slafkovsky almost dug it out from under his glove to pot his first. But, man, I thought that line was amazing tonight. There was a period, I believe in the second period, where the Pittsburgh defense were on for over 2 minutes. I remember seeing the clock. The defense was on the ice for 2 minutes, 2 minutes and 15 seconds, and most of that was while that fourth line of Slafkovsky, Evans, and Hoffman were dominating in the zone, just being super physical. It was like a keep-away line. It's what we're used to seeing from that, Evans, Armia, and whoever else on the other wing. Slafkovsky sort of slid into that Armia role almost, if some of you are familiar with those lines from the past couple of years. It was really interesting to see, and I know a lot of us before the game thought, we're moving Slafkovsky down to the fourth line. It's a waste of his time. We might as well put him in Laval, let him dominate down there. But at the same time, that line was really surprisingly good tonight, and I thought it really showed off Slafkovsky's skill set a bit better than it did in previous games, and I'm surprised by that. I know a lot of you are probably surprised by that too. Again, he comes out, without a point. He comes out with only about 10 minutes of ice time, which is quite low. I believe it might have been even his lowest of the season, but I personally felt like I noticed him more tonight. I don't know how you guys feel. Let me know how you feel about Slafkovsky's game there tonight in the comments, because I know a lot of people, there are a lot of videos from other channels going up talking about how we might as well just send him down, especially now that we put him on the fourth line and we're not giving him any special teams time. But I thought he really showed that he should be given a bit of a better chance after tonight's game. And I thought he played way better than Dadonov for most of this game, though Dadonov did have a couple of great moments down the stretch. Drew what was quite a questionable call, on Jeff Petrie. But, man, I just think Slafkovsky was amazing. I thought Drouin was amazing tonight. I thought Guhle was by far our best player. I mean, and this all in an emotional night, too, because it was Jeff Petrie's return. It was Ryan Poehling's return. I mean, Poehling was great for us, of course, in his debut. No one can forget the hat trick plus shootout winner game against Toronto in the final game of the season just a few years ago. But, he's a Montreal legend for that, and we like Ryan Poehling. We have nothing really bad to say about him. At least I don't. Maybe some of you do. And Petrie coming back, I mean, nothing but respect for Jeff Petrie. He gave us his all during that finals run with the red eyes and the dislocated finger. Of course, he did ask for a trade out of Montreal last year, but that was for family reasons, and the team wasn't doing well. He wanted to go to another contender. Sure thing. And, he did get the booze tonight, as I mentioned, but, we all respect him. So it was an emotional night. And again, Jake Allen as well. I forgot to even mention that Jake Allen wasn't there tonight. We had to start Montembeault because Jake Allen's wife was likely going to give birth tonight or maybe tomorrow. So, I mean, congratulations to him and his family. We'll get some baby Jake the Snakes. But yeah, Monty did really well in his spot start. He wasn't expecting to have to start 2 in a row. But all these things going on, and the Habs really rose to the occasion. Not early, because the first period was actually all right. We outshot Pittsburgh. I thought we had the better chances. I think Montreal played a much better game than they have the last 2 games. Maybe not against Detroit, but their chances in the first, I think it was their best first period since their game against Toronto. Their second period, I personally thought was really, really weak. It felt like in the second period, we just were getting killed. I remember, I think at one point the shots were 14-8. Something like that, and then I look up later and the shots are 17-15 for Pittsburgh, and I was shooting us 9-1 at one point in the period. It felt like, again, as me and Jesse have repeated every single game recap so far, it just felt like the defense has some growing pains. And let's talk about those Malkin goals, okay? So let's get into those. The first goal, as the announcers were saying, yeah, you can maybe be in better position, but that's a save maybe Monty should have. Of course, it's a hard shot. It's a one-timer from one of the better goal scorers of our generation from just above the face-off dot on Monty's left. And it was just a hard shot right off the post and in. And sometimes you give up those goals. Could someone have been there to block it? Maybe. But it was a good shot, and you live with it, right? It's a one-timer from Evgeny Malkin, sure. The second goal, however, is where it's a common theme. That second Malkin goal reminded me of the Soderblom goal for Detroit. It reminded me of the Dennis Malgin goal against Toronto. It was just one of those times where Montreal's defense kind of lose track. There's a debate whether it was Jordan Harris's responsibility to cover Malkin on that possession or maybe Suzuki. But it's a common theme, right? A shot from the left side. This time it was the left side. Of course, in the Malgin goal, it was the right side, and the Soderblom was a wraparound. But again, it was just a shot right on Monty. He couldn't corral the puck. He gave up a little bit of a rebound, and Malkin is just there. Right there on the doorstep. Actually, I'm not even sure if it was a rebound. The announcers were saying Brian Rust passed it. I couldn't really tell if it was a shot or a pass, but I'll give him the benefit of the doubt. Let's say it was a pass. But regardless, it doesn't matter. Right? Malkin just skated in on the back door, similar to what Kirby Dach did in overtime, and was right there on the doorstep with no one checking him. It's Evgeny Malkin. How do you lose him? You know, you gotta be paying attention if you're the Montreal defense. And, you know, we won this game on the back of Samuel Montembeault playing a great game, had some amazing saves, an amazing kick save early in the game. Well, actually, I believe that was in the second period. But again, these defensive woes need to be fixed. And, you know, there are growing pains, of course. But in my mind, there's an issue when you give up scoring chances in the same way over and over again. This is something that Montreal can fix. This is not some unfixable, you know, crazy stroke of luck that keeps happening to every team that plays Montreal. I'm sure teams are looking and seeing that Montreal has a weakness when a player skates almost backdoor behind the defense for a little tap in or a rebound goal, because it's happened multiple times this year, and the Habs defense do need to wake up and start playing better. There's no other way about it. I'm sure Marty St. Louis has drilled that into them. I'm sure in their next film session that goal and the Soderblom goal and the Malgin goal will just be replayed on repeat. But that's just a region where Montreal needs to get better. Other than that, I wanted to talk about Montreal's special teams tonight. Again, their power play wasn't amazing. Again, we got the power play goal in overtime, and I thought that power play was amazing, but it was 4-on-3. Our 5-on-4 power play, I should specify, has still been a little underwhelming. I mean, we get some good chances, and I think we could have had a power play goal tonight, to be quite honest. But, you know, bounces didn't go our way, and Casey DeSmith had a great game in net. Whatever, you live with that. But I think we need to just... I think our big problem is we're passing almost too much in some situations. When we're rolling and we've been in the zone for, 5-10 seconds, we're usually good. But one thing I've been noticing, I don't know if you guys have noticed this too, let me know if I'm completely wrong, because I could be completely wrong about a lot of these things. I want you guys to tell me. But from my point of view, when I'm watching Montreal enter the zone, and it's usually not Suzuki, in fact, it's usually Caufield that makes this particular mistake. He'll enter the zone, and he'll try a little drop pass, whether it's off the boards, or maybe just a little drop pass behind him, just leaving the puck there. But those lead to turnovers quite a bit for Montreal. There were a lot of unforced turnovers on 5-on-4 power play zone entries, or just a couple seconds after a zone entry. Because like I said, once we're in the zone, we're usually pretty good. But we still run that, power play entry that most teams are running now, where you kind of get your 4 guys, you skate up the center, and you just feed it right back, and Suzuki almost always is the one just driving straight up the middle, and if he doesn't have room, he'll feed it off to a wing, and you enter that way. We skate into the zone as opposed to dumping it. But with our big physical bodies, especially on that second power play, you'd think that maybe we could try dumping it in a bit more. I'm not sure. I mean, I could be completely wrong. I'm not a hockey coach, but these unforced 5-on-4 power play turnovers are what is costing us goals. We could have won this game if we were more effective entering the zone on the 5-on-4 power play tonight. But coming off of that, negative bit of news on the power play, our penalty kill, on the other hand, tonight was phenomenal. Absolutely phenomenal. Of course, Caden Guhle is the main guy in the back there. He's our number one defenseman on the penalty kill. David Savard had some great penalty kill as well. And Dadonov, he actually wasn't that bad tonight. He created a couple chances going the other way. As you guys may or may not know, I'm rather skeptical of running him on the penalty kill at all, considering coming into this season, I think it was less than 1 minute total in his career before on the penalty kill, but Marty sees something in him. And he actually had a pretty good time in the penalty kill tonight. But not just him, just both penalty kill units were creating chances. I mean, in that third period, when Jack-Eye took a penalty, we had multiple breaks. One of them, I believe, we killed the clock back to almost, I think, 1 minute and 15 seconds on just the first possession of the penalty kill. We went in, we had a chance on goal. I believe it was a 2-on-1. We had multiple 2-on-1s in the same penalty kill. One with Jake Evans and Evgeny Dadonov coming together. Jake Evans took the shot, couldn't get the pass over to Dadonov. And the other one, I forget which 2 players it was. But, we had some great chances. And after those 2 chances, we'd feed it back. David Savard kind of holds it for a second and slaps it back in. Our rushes on the PK were great. I thought our gambles tonight were really smart. Pittsburgh was a little lazy, it seemed like, on the power play tonight. They're used to kind of getting their way. I mean, they had 12 goals total through 2 games. So they are used to scoring. Their power play is one of the best in the league, or at least one of the most highly touted. Well, and another interesting point about their power play, they have Malkin playing the center, taking the draws in the power play now, who's been 70-something% this year on the draw, which is wild on its own. I'm not going to dive too deep into that, but if you're interested in why I'm surprised by that, go look at Evgeny Malkin's career faceoff numbers and then compare them to what he's doing this season. It is absolutely insane because he's usually like a 40% faceoff guy. But you can go look at that. And anyway, they got Crosby playing the point now and Malkin taking the faceoffs. But they're so used to just getting their own way, I think, on the power play. And Montreal's defense, and of course their forwards on their PK, were really aggressive in their gambles. They were being really aggressive on the puck, but they stayed at home at the same time. Like, they didn't make super risky gambles. They were just blocking shots, tipping passes when they could, and being always ready to spring out of the zone and go for an offensive chance. And I thought it was just awesome to watch tonight, that penalty kill. The best penalty killing game of the season. Montreal has had a really good penalty kill so far this year. They've only given up 1 power play goal, and that was to Washington. And think about the teams they've played. They've played against the Leafs, who have one of the best power plays in the league, and the league's best goal scorer, Austin Matthews. They've played against the Capitals and, Alexander Ovechkin, who didn't even score that power play goal against us. And now tonight we play Sidney Crosby, Evgeny Malkin, Chris Letang, and the Penguins. Jake Gensel. I got to mention Jake Gensel, 40 goal scorer multiple times. But we did well. And I saw an interesting post earlier, actually, talking about how this is Caden Goulet's first week in the NHL, and he's been on the top pairing against the likes of Matthews and Marner, the likes of Ovechkin and Crosby and Malkin. And these are the guys that he grew up idolizing, right? Even me, like Sidney Crosby is just the guy. Being someone from Atlantic Canada, you love to hate Sidney Crosby because he wasn't on your team, but the man is just an absolute legend in all of hockey, of course. And the announcers were talking tonight that there's a good chance Crosby could end up being the top all-time point getter for the Pittsburgh Penguins, passing Mario Lemieux in just maybe 3 or 4 seasons. So that is pretty crazy. He's on pace to do it, which is nuts. But Crosby and, of course, Ovechkin, the best goal scorer maybe of all time. We're on that goal watch, watching him catch Gretzky. And, of course, Austin Matthews, who just won the Rocket, who is putting up goal totals that we haven't seen in a while. At least, pace for goal totals. Goals per game is absolutely ridiculous. I mean, as much as I dislike the Leafs, and as much as I dislike Austin Matthews, he's a good goal scorer. And that's all I'm going to say good about the Leafs for probably the rest of the season. All right? Cool. We're good with that. So, but yeah, Caden Guhle has been really up to the challenge. Not just him, of course, the rest of the Montreal D. I thought Kovacevic was good tonight even. He had this really interesting play where the puck was about to come out of the offensive zone, and there were 2 Penguins kind of closing in on him. I believe Crosby was one of them. And Kovacevic, instead of backing up and playing it safe, he stepped into it, and he kept the puck alive in the offensive zone. We didn't get much out of it, but I thought it was just a really gutsy play by just a waiver wire pickup who is very new to the NHL, just stepping in and making these, pro veteran plays. And as me and Jesse were talking about recently, Montreal's defense coming into this season was really not touted to be very good. In fact, a lot of people, myself included, said that might be the worst defensive core in the league, and that was including Matheson and Edmondson. But through 4 games this year, Montreal's defense has been fantastic. We beat Toronto. We barely lost a 1-0 game against Detroit, in which our defense and goaltending was absolutely phenomenal. Jake Allen was amazing in that game. And then we only gave up 3 goals to Washington, but of course 1 was in the power play, and a couple of them, there's nothing Montembeault could do about it. And even tonight, we beat the Pittsburgh Penguins, who had 12 goals in their first 2 games, as I mentioned earlier, and we only allowed 2. So while there have been lapses, especially on that second Malkin goal tonight, these are just rookie mistakes, and Montreal's defense as a whole is moving the puck well. We're really controlling the puck well in our own zone, especially. We're really poised. I think Jack Eye maybe looks a little nervous sometimes out there. He's still throwing the body, but he's making a few rookie mistakes. I do wonder once Matheson and Edmondson come back. I mean, that's well in the future now, but you do wonder if he's going to be the one that's going to slip out of the lineup. As much as I love him, the Sheriff, Arbor Jack Eye, the best name in hockey, he has a little bit of work to do. I love him, but he got a couple of penalties that, especially in such a close game, you can't be getting the penalties that he got. That interference call. Now, that one was interesting because Jonathan Drouin, of course, just fired it backwards to absolutely no one. I'm really confused as to what he was doing there. For as good a playmaker he is, I'm sure he was just expecting someone to be there. But there was no one there, and of course, Jack-Eye decided to sort of just stand up and hit. I forget who it was. Was it maybe Gensel, who was going towards the puck? Maybe it was Kapanen. I can't quite remember. But just had to stand him up and got an interference call, and he complained about it because he didn't really move too much, but it was interference. He can't really take that, and he got a high stick earlier in the game as well. He's had a number of penalties for the first few games that, but that's something he can correct. He lacks a little bit of discipline so far, but otherwise I've been really impressed with him, especially offensively recently. In the last 2 games, he's really been looking to fire the puck towards the net, and as the old saying goes, when you put the puck on net, good things will happen. So yeah, I think that's about it for this game recap. I just thought that, to summarize, Guhle is absolutely phenomenal. He is our best defenseman right now, and I hope he's one of our best defensemen in the future. And if he's not, I hope he can be the number one partner to our best defenseman in the future, because this kid is incredible. His skating was one thing that people were hounding him on when he was drafted, but he's turned that around and become an excellent skater. Clearly is comfortable on the forehand and backhand passing with that pass to Suzuki tonight. On the power play, on the penalty kill, this kid can do it all. I'm so excited. And again, just such an exciting game. Really such an exciting game to watch. Caufield with a clutch one-timer. I wish he could have got that second goal where he hit the crossbar. He fanned slightly on the shot. You could tell he was upset. But he had a bunch of chances tonight. I'm so glad he potted his 3rd of the season. Suzuki got his 2nd of the season. And Dach, the man who in my last video called maybe the Habs' best player, I thought he passed the eye test tonight again too. Just big body, getting into these board battles and winning them. It feels like when he's on the ice, the offense is so much smoother. And, well-deserved game-winning goal for Dach. He was excellent on the defensive end and on the offensive end tonight, so shout out to him. And what I thought was Slafkovsky's best game, even though he was on the 4th line. I really want to see Slafkovsky get some more minutes. If you're going to send him down to Laval, that's fine. I'm actually starting to get curious whether or not they're even going to do that, because you're mixing him up in different lines, and it just kind of feels like he might stay. But if Marty's plan is to send him down to Laval after 9 games, sure, but we got to at least see him tried on the power play. This power play that only now has 1 goal, and it was 4-on-3 in overtime. I just want to see him there, or just see him on just replace Dadonov. I don't care. Now I know taking Dadonov away is taking another penalty killer out of the lineup, because before it was Rem Pitlick, or even just swap him. Who cares? Just swap Dadonov down to the 4th line or something, and put Slafkovsky up to the 2nd or 3rd. Maybe even the 1st, though I think that 1st line tonight was incredible with Suzuki, Caufield, and Monahan, who could step in if Suzuki was kicked out of the draw. But I need to see Slafkovsky get some more minutes, because I am really, really inspired by his play. I think he really wants to stay, and he's fighting to prove it. He could have easily had a goal, maybe even 2 tonight, if some bounces went his way. So, anyway, all that said, I'm super excited. This was such a hype recap to record. Just, I don't know. That game was absolutely incredible. I'm so happy to have witnessed that. It's the perfect end to a game, right? Caufield scores the clutch goal with 2 minutes left to tie it with the empty net. And then Dach, the young guys, just being clutch. Dach with the game winner, the brand new player we acquired this offseason. It's a good time to be a Habs fan. Even if we don't win a ton of games this year, the young talent is so fun to watch. And I hope to be there. I hope to be there to see them on the other side of this rebuild. And I hope to be there with you guys. I hope this channel is still going strong when we're on the other side of this and we're a cup contender again. So that's it for this game reaction. I've been Josh Gosse. Don't forget to like and subscribe to this channel. We've been getting some great views on videos recently. So if you're seeing this for the first time, it'd really help us out if you just left a like or subscribe to the channel. We'd really love it. So thank you very much. We'll see you in the next video.